Eddie, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you, David?
Good. How are you?
I am doing fine, thanks.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, my pleasure. You're my first Zoom call, so I was
Oh
not
my gosh.
really, yeah, really wasn't sure if this was going to work or not because I'm having to walk around with my phone. My computer doesn't have a mic or a camera on it, so
Oh, okay.
um, yeah, so I was just kind of meandering around, letting the dogs out and doing all the necessary stuff, just kind of waiting for you to show up. But
So what Beach Boy shirt are you wearing?
this is, uh,
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
yeah, yeah. I don't remember exactly where I got it. It's the first time I've worn it. Had it for like 5 years. I must have gotten it at Redbubble or one of those offshoot T-shirt places.
Oh, okay. That's pretty nice though. I like the way it looks.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad a quality. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with it and just thought, what can I wear to geek out? So,
So I went and put my ESQ shirt on. There's
oh, nice, nice.
not many left of them. They're from I think 2008 or something. There is not very few left these days. Um, but there's a couple of things I'm going to tell you. Um, I don't know. I'm 58. I don't know how close we are in age, but if you've ever watched Groucho Marx's "You Bet Your Life," uh,
Hmm.
okay. So I have one of the things that we're doing as a part of the VIP. I have written a word, an everyday word, inside this envelope. If you say
Oh
the
my.
everyday word during our Zoom, you will receive a historic collectible, one of a kind.
Hmm.
So that's just, and remind me if I don't actually think to say it at the end of the Zoom. If you don't say it, I'll show you the word just so that. Um, and then the other thing is we could possibly be joined by a special guest. That's another part of the VIP thing that we're doing.
Oh, great, great.
So we try to, I'm trying my best to make it fun, enjoyable, interesting.
Okay.
What do you enjoy about Endless Summer Quarterly, and what, when you get the magazine, generally speaking, what do you appreciate about what it does?
I do like the backgrounds of a lot of the albums that come out. It tells like the prequels or the things that are happening, um, during the recording of these things. Because like you, I'm one of the older fans. We're a couple of years in age difference, but we grew up in real time with them, and so it's always kind of refreshingly amusing to hear the newer fans say, "Oh yeah, I discovered them back when they had their 50th anniversary, and I've collected everything." And so all of a sudden they have this vast library of sounds that we had to wait for. So we took what we got and we embraced it a little bit more, I believe, than they have the luxury of going through and saying, "Oh, well, I don't like this album as much." But here we were thirsting for it, for a 5 year stretch,
Hmm.
or in the '70s up through the '80s, and then onward. Um, but that doesn't answer your question at all, does it?
Well, it does in a way because you're right. Nowadays, whatever any fan discovers, regardless of age, they can kind of come on, and the world is at their fingertips of any catalog,
Right.
mostly. And so they don't even have to. There isn't the when is the next product coming out, because the Beach Boys is a cohesive whole. Like with That's Why God Made the Radio being their last true effort. There's not
Right.
that next album coming out, and if it were, it'd be available through streaming services, so that what you and I experienced, where it was like, oh, the next album's coming out, and when's it coming out? Okay, where's my favorite record store? I'm gonna go buy it there. I can't, I can't wait, even in the case of 96's, the Nashville, the country album they did, Stars and
Right,
Stripes.
right.
Even then I remember reading about it in Billboard. I wasn't that all pizzazzed about it, but I still wanted to go to the record store, wanted to buy the product, wanted to listen, was still excited. Not as excited as if the news had been a brand new Beach Boys album of new music. That obviously would
Right.
have been different. But I can even remember I was at Myrtle Beach in the summer of June of '92 when Summer in Paradise came out, and I remember I didn't have my own car then. I was reliant on other people to drive me. I was kind of a pain in the butt. Like, you got to get me to the record store because I got to get this new album, and I bought it on cassette. But I wanted to hear this new album, and it didn't matter. It just, as a fan, I didn't get all into whether or not, if Brian was on the album, I wasn't. Then I had no interest. I wanted to get Beach Boys product. I wanted to hear what it was. I wanted to experience it, and so I have a little bit of a love affair with every album, like Stars
Yeah,
and
right.
Stripes. I love Willie Nelson's Warmth of the Sun, and I love Timothy B. Schmidt's Caroline No. And I love Carl's background vocals on I Can Hear Music, with Kathy Tricoli. I just love Carl just going, oh, 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 just that little pocket of vocal, man. It's all worth it for me. Just that moment. And going back to Still Cruising, I got to tell you, with Still Cruising, I loved, I did think it was an odd album because the last three songs were these wrong
Right.
mix, the incorrect mix of Wouldn't It Be Nice? And, it was weird. But Somewhere Near Japan, to this day, is like, it's considered adult contemporary music, but to me, it's latter Beach Boys, great vocalization, great songwriting, great execution. I mean, I just thought Somewhere Near Japan and Al's, uh, oh gosh, Brian's In My Car, Somewhere Near Japan. Still Cruising itself was a pretty good song. It ended up in Lethal Weapon 2, and I liked it in the
Island Girl.
Island Girl, yes.
Yeah.
It looks like we have a special guest. Hold on here. Okay. Off each other. Paul
Oh yeah.
Mertens, how are you?
Hi guys.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Eddie. I'm good, thanks.
What
a
a
little dark.
surprise and an honor.
It's my pleasure.
So, Paul, I've explained to Eddie. So, to Eddie, I'm doing this specifically with Paul because Paul was one of the people who send me this. I've got a couple of really historic collectible items, but I do have to point out Paul was so generous to send, and I don't know where I've got it sitting right now, but Paul was generous to. It's over here somewhere. Paul was generous. He took the harmonica. I want him to tell you the story while I go see if I can grab it real quick.
Okay.
All right.
While we were working on the Gershwin record, the process was to record the basic tracks with as much of the band playing live as possible. And Brian would sing a scratch vocal while the band was recording so that they could hear him sing and kind of interact, and it just helped to liven up the take. So we would do a scratch vocal. Brian would do a scratch vocal with every song. When it came to I've Got Plenty of Nothing, he didn't feel like singing that day. He didn't want to do the scratch vocal. So I took, there's just a cheap Shure SM57 sitting in the booth for talkback. So I played the melody on harmonica with the talkback mic while the band was recording, just so that they could hear the melody and keep their place and everything. Later we came back with Brian to record the final vocals for everything. We got to I Got Plenty of Nothing, and I said, all right, are you ready to sing this song? And he goes, no, that's going to be an instrumental. So what's on the record was me playing on this cheap mic in the booth while the band was tracking. So it's totally live. We did add a bass harmonica part later, but what's on the record is that's what it is, and that's the harmonica
Oh man, that's
The
incredible.
harmonic
used. So
right there.
yeah.
This was so incredible when I got this from Paul. I almost thought, is there a way that I could keep this? Because I love that story, and the Gershwin album is like for me, it's just one of my all-time favorites by Brian. It's just such a significant marrying of two pop or two music legends, the
Right.
American songbook legends together. And then Paul, if I'm remembering correctly, you took this on tour as well, right?
Yeah, I used it because it was like it was the one that I had in my kit when we left on tour. So we toured the album. I used that harmonica until I didn't need it anymore, and then it's just been sitting with my other hundreds of other harmonicas here at home. So
So awesome.
anyway,
It looks like holding a piece of time, like being in a time machine. If only I
Oh
knew how
yeah.
to.
it was a moment.
But so Eddie is in Georgia, and he's been a subscriber for several years to ESQ. But he was born in '62, so he's been a fan for a long time of the group. And so Eddie, we really were just kind of getting into. Well, let me just get out of the way. What would you like to ask Paul?
Oh gracious. So going back to the Gershwin album, the did was Brian able to bring those works back where he could work on them in the privacy of his own home studio, so to speak, or did he have to like do them within a certain approved area since they were the property of Disney, weren't they? Or is that not right? I don't know who actually owned them.
Disney was the record label uh,
Okay.
that was, backing the record and making it possible to make the record. And Brian had a deal to make two records for Disney. One was the Gershwin record, and which I agree with David. I think it delivers exactly what it's promised. It's a true collaboration.
Hmm.
But the Gershwin record, and then a second record for Disney, which is the Disney songs.
Right. Yeah.
Brian. Um, but the way the process worked was Brian had a number of Gershwin songs in mind that he really wanted to do. And I Loves You, Porgy, and Someone to Watch Over Me were a couple that were at the top of his list. Um, I assembled as many recordings of other Gershwin songs that I thought might interest him. And he listened to a lot of songs, and he made the final choices of all the other songs. There are a couple that I kind of discovered while I was doing research, and one was the song "Stay Awake" from Dumbo, which is a beautiful little sort of nursery rhyme, or what do you call it? It's kind of a lullaby. But Brian would make his choices, and then we would discuss how we would approach each song. And sometimes he had a pretty specific idea of what kind of feel that he wanted for a song. Like, he wanted "They Can't Take That Away From Me" to be like a shuffle, to be like a rock or a swinging kind of rock shuffle. So I prepared guide charts for the band to learn the songs in the studio, and we'd get the songs. The band would just start playing, kind of based on the guidelines of the chart and a little conversation with Brian. And then as the band began to play the song, he would direct them in the studio as to what to play specifically. So he'd react to what he was hearing from the band and then go, stop, Nikki, lay out until the bridge, or Proven, play that part way up on the neck, very high, stuff like that. That's the Disney record. Yeah.
So so now who actually drove that project in the beginning? Did they approach Brian, or did Brian decide, I love Gershwin, so I'm going to check in to see if I can record some of his songs and
Yeah.
so who was the instigator
I'm
and
not
the
exactly
catalyst?
sure, but I think that was also a process because Brian had often expressed his admiration for Gershwin and
Right.
um, that he loved the music and was influenced by it. Um, and I'm not sure who made the first overture, but George Gershwin's estate had um, what are called trunk songs, literally as in like found in a trunk in an attic or something.
Oh
Um,
man.
were songs that Gershwin had never published or released, song fragments, like pieces of songs. Um, and they offered those to Brian to finish and record. Um, so I sat with Brian, and they had made up like very simple, just piano demos of each of the songs, just piano playing the melody. And there were like over 100, I'm sure. And we'd listen, and Brian would go, no, 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 maybe, check, maybe, yeah, I like that. Um, so he chose a couple of fragments that he wanted to finish, and he had some ideas that had been rattling around in his brain that he wanted to put into a song somehow. Um, so those, the two songs, there are two songs that are, in fact, a collaboration between George Gershwin and Brian Wilson. They get co-writing credit on it, and uh, the songs are uh, the Like and I Love You, and I forget what the other one is.
Nothing but love.
Nothing but love. Yeah,
Oh,
and
I love that.
yeah, so those songs were put together, based on Brian's reactions to these song fragments that he chose, and then you know we strung them together into a rough idea of how the song might go. And again, um, sometimes Brian has a crystal clear idea in his head, and he comes in and says, "Do this, you do that, you do this." Other times he listens to what's going on, and he'll even say, "Just play whatever you feel." Um, but then he listens and
No
guides.
pressure, right?
Yeah, right. Come up with something amazing. But he listens and guides the arrangement as it takes shape. So um, it's sometimes it's fully formed, other times it's clay that he is shaping.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first dance song at my wedding on 11/11/11 was the Like and I Love You.
Oh, nice.
That
Yeah.
is nice. And
Yeah.
11/11 is my birthday, so that's pretty cool.
There you go. Take. Um, so what else would you have you been to recent Brian shows in recent years, Eddie, or
Uh,
any tours that stand out?
the the last Brian show that I went to was here in Georgia, and he was opening for Chicago, and it was a very rainy day. I don't know if that stands out in your mind, Paul,
It
but
does.
yeah, does it? But yeah, he was um, almost like he was just there to watch the audience. Um, I mean, he was participating, but it's like his love of watching the audience was like why he was there that day. And of course, he sang his favorite song, "Be My Baby," and all the classics that you guys did. But it, I guess, will always stand out to me that he was just sitting at the piano during a lot of it and just kind of looking out in the audience like, you know, they're here for me. It's unbelievable. It was like he was humbled that everyone was there just for him.
Yeah, yeah. That that tour that was last summer, and that was a hard tour because all the shows were outdoors. It was very hot, and we went on early enough that the sun was still in the sky and usually shining right in our faces when we came. Um, and Brian did. It was difficult for him at times, just because of the heat and all of that. And I think that you're right, because I know that he's happy to be there, and there's no place else that he would want to be, because he's never missed a show in the entire time since 1999. He's never missed a show, and I know some people say it looks like he's not having fun, and they should just let him go home and enjoy his retirement. But what those people don't understand is that for Brian as a performer, and really for all of us who whose lives and identity is so wrapped up in playing for people, that's the only place you want to be. And so I know that appearances to the contrary, he wants to be there. He can't always do it. I mean, you can tell he forgets lyrics, he forgets to come in,
Yeah.
And he needs a lot of support. But I think you also alluded to something that, in a way, Brian is like, a friend of mine put it this way. He said, Brian is kind of like the maitre d'. If the maitre d' wasn't there, everyone would still get fed, everybody would get a meal, but it wouldn't be the same experience.
Right.
The fact that Brian can sometimes still deliver a very touching vocal, but the fact that he's there and participating with fans of the music is, to me, it's very powerful thing. It's very emotional, and it's not about the notes. It's about who he is. So
Yeah. Now, I do have another couple of questions. The first of which is, Al alluded to the fact that he was working with Brian on a new album. Does that sound like that's factual, as far as another Brian album that we can expect?
he may be. I mean, he alluded to it that that might be the case. I don't really know, so I can't speak for Al or Brian in that case. But
yeah,
it would be wonderful if they did, because, like I said, Brian would rather be doing something than, not
yeah.
doing.
Now the next question, it should probably be off the record, because I don't know what the answer is. You might not, and
Yeah.
if you prefer not to say, has Brian indicated whether or not he'll still be touring
Well,
past this last tour?
yeah, there hasn't been an official announcement,
Mhm.
and also, I mean, I think I can say there's nothing scheduled right now. So, um, uh, beyond that, I can't really say, because that's all I know at the moment.
Yeah. Well, that said, Brian owes us fans absolutely nothing. And he has given his life to us. And if there is no more tour, then we're grateful for the things that he has given so selflessly. And to the members of the band, you all have just absolutely been a godsend in, spreading, I hesitate to say the gospel of Brian, but the music and the foundational building blocks of all of our lives. I mean, like I was telling David, we grew up in real time with Brian as he was, starting in 62. Well, I was born in 62. So, it was, it's been a long, tedious road for him. And it's certainly, he has certainly made it a much easier and more comfortable road for us by the gifts that he has given us through the years.
Yeah, that's very, very elegantly put, Eddie. There's a number of things that you get in talking that you guys have made me think of. One, I've always likened Brian's shows, even going back to when he started on the road back when he started to do Pet Sounds in its entirety for the first time. I've always looked at Brian's shows as art exhibits. That you're really going to experience the painter, and yeah, his band does such an amazing job, and with the color, with the colors, putting the tapestry right out there in front of us for all to enjoy, and Paul being the music director, and I am saying this to be sweet, but it's also very true. Paul has done stunning work after stunning work after stunning work with Brian, his catalog, and creating new musical landmark albums, since that time began, and meaningful works that I believe will stand up right up next to anything that his first solo album. There's some other albums in there, but to me, you can take '88 album, you can take that Lucky Old Son, you can take Reimagines Gershwin, and for me, those albums are significant releases by anybody, anywhere. Mm-hmm. So Eddie, you're in the Georgia area, so I want to ask you, because I remember interacting with Paul back in. Paul, you're going to have to help me with the date if you can remember. I don't know if you can, but it was the last date of Pet Sounds in its entirety, the first time. So we're going all the way back. It was at Chastain, and Eddie, I don't know if you were at that show. I'm hoping you were. It was a deluge. The only disappointing thing is it rained like crazy during the overture that Paul worked on with Van Dyke. So I didn't really get to appreciate the overture because it was raining so hard I couldn't barely hear it. But then the rain went away, and I think it wasn't Larry Baird who was the conductor. It was another gentleman. He was, and I can't think of his name. What was his name?
Charles. His last name will come to me, but yeah, Charles took Larry's place and did such an amazing job. He was just a wonderful guy. Not Charles Foy. Anyway,
but Eddie, did you get to see that show? Were you at that?
Pet Sounds was one I did not get to go to. I did get to see Smile.
Okay.
I did get to see Peer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As a matter, I also, of course, did the 50th anniversary, and I saw you there, and I was going to say hi, but we were not.
Me?
You. Yeah. Me? Well, yeah. And
I didn't say.
Yeah, you. But you were mingling with some other people, and I was kind of far away, so I wasn't gonna elbow my way through the crowd. David, you don't know me, but but I know who you are. That wouldn't freak you out at all, would it?
But but I think in talking about these albums and these shows, I think someone's name that I think it's important to me to bring up is Nick Walusko. Nicky had such a profound love for Brian's work, and it really showed on stage. And when he would play the instrumental for Pet Sounds, was always a highlight for me when you guys played that in its
Oh,
entirety.
yeah.
He was so nailed in and dialed in on that. It just, you just, and it was great because this is why I considered it like an art exhibit, was because Brian too, when you guys would do the two, Paul, when you guys would do the two instrumentals from Pet Sounds, Let's Go Away for a While and Pet Sounds, Brian would just kind of sit there and look at all you guys and just kind of canvas across the stage, and just, you could just see him absorbing the love of what you guys were putting on there for it, because you were doing it for the audience, the paying public. But
Right.
I think he was getting just as much out of it as everybody else was, and I love that. It's like the painter getting to watch, everybody come to his grand opening, his art on the walls, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah,
So
early on, he was sitting. The setup was him at a electric keyboard, and he would be on a stool, and he would just swivel around in his stool and face the band and watch us play. And sometimes a little conducting too, if he felt like it. But yeah, he was definitely taking it in, and yeah, I really a day doesn't pass when I don't think about Nicky, because uh, he was such a good friend and such an artist, and also uh, one of the brightest, most interesting, intriguing people I've ever known. He was a good friend and knew something about everything. Literally, I mean, we would be sitting in catering, and someone would try the shrimp salad and go, "What is cholesterol? I heard shrimp has a lot of cholesterol." And Nikki could hold forth on like what cholesterol was chemically, biologically, and in every other way. And just, you name it, pick any topic, outer space, geology, didn't matter.
oh, he loved outer space. Oh my goodness, he loved Star Trek. Holy smokes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Have you
that.
have you seen the video of Nick teaching Jeff Beck the theme to Star Trek on the guitar and addressing?
Yes, yes, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And Eddie, did you happen to see that tour with Jeff Beck? Because I know
Uh,
that came through. I watched that at Chastain too.
no, I was thinking, and I did not see Jeff Beck, but I did see seems like a Pet Sounds that was done not at Chastain, but somewhere else. A Pet Sounds and Greatest Hits, maybe at
Yeah,
um
that would have been more
but
recent.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the Pet Sounds at Chastain was with the full orchestra. The
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
next time we were at Chastain, or the next time that I remember at Chastain, was when we did Smile with the Stockholm Strings.
No, four. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah.
and and then there was a subsequent, the 50th anniversary Pet Sounds tour was uh, with, not with orchestra, but with actually our preferred presentation of Pet Sounds with just strings, a couple of strings and horns. It's more true to the record. So
Hmm.
that would have been the 50th anniversary of Pet Sounds.
Okay. Yeah, it was in the first time you guys came through, and it rained, and I remember I was sitting with Melinda at the table right in front of the stage, and I had no idea that you guys were gonna put the train and the dogs on the end.
Yeah.
So I stood up. Caroline No was coming to an end, and I was clapping, and Melinda's next to me, and we're clapping, and then the train comes in, and the dogs are barking, and being the dork that I am, I just went, "Oh my God, you've got the train, you've got the dogs." And she just laughed at me. She
Yeah.
just was like, "Oh, you really are a dork, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of am." And I just kept clapping. I just
David,
loved it.
that was for you and all of the other dorks, including dorks in the band on stage. Because believe me, we went so deep on that record that we'd have debates about, you know, uh, whether we should replicate the mistakes, because there are some mistakes on the
Like the
session that,
talking, yes.
talking. There's like a bad banjo, an early banjo entrance on. I know there's an answer. I think the banjo comes in early or plays a wrong chord, and we kept those things too. So, like we were obsessed with that.
That's great. That is so cool. I love that stuff, especially that attention. That let's but to do it right, you guys had to take the time to listen to the tracks dissected, right? To be able to hear right where it was, what was being said, you know, that all that little minutia to take that time. That's I love that devotion.
And then
I
the
appreciate.
performing it was a process of, you know, delivering the music to an audience mostly who had not ever heard it live before. So we have that on our mind, you know, that every night is a special, important experience for the people who are there. And playing it night after night, things tend to drift with really complex music. Vocal parts start to morph or change a little bit. So the hundreds of times that we played that song, that album, we would always talk about it after the show and make small corrections and keep the thing like really tight and on course at all times. So
Did you experience band wide any kind of like really excruciating mistake during that tour, the Pet Sounds tour, that was just kind of like cringeworthy to anyone?
Well, not cringeworthy, but I think it was maybe during one of the Pet Sounds performances in Boston. We were outdoors, and we started to play the intro to "Don't Talk, Lay Your Head on My Shoulder." Super quiet, like really somber, sensitive piece of music, and the intro, like the band starts up, and Brian doesn't sing. And instead he goes, wait, stop. And then playing, and he goes, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, a bug was flying right at my eye. So we started again. To be honest, I can't remember any musical catastrophes. I mean, there have been the odd thing where like the power went out suddenly or something like that. But I don't remember anything musically ever going down that would have been noticeable to the audience. I mean, we might be aware of like a clam here and there, but you know,
So if the power went out, did you go for it vocally, just a cappella?
I think we did that once. We just stood on the
Did you?
stage and sang a cappella for a couple minutes until
Nice.
they got it.
That's great.
Paul, what tour was it? Because I know this was at Chastain. Maybe it was Smile. There was one tour you did at the beginning where you came out and you did like, it was almost like you guys were around each other and you just did a cappella with, or it wasn't a cappella, it was just with guitar, acoustic guitar, tambourine, and you guys kind of powwowed around together. What?
Yeah, we called that the campfire.
Okay.
Because we're literally acoustically playing and singing acoustically in a semicircle. And that was the first Smile tour.
Okay. I was thinking of Smile. Yeah.
Because we did it at the London premiere of Smile.
Okay.
We did like the campfire set, and then the whole band played some songs. Then we took an intermission, and then we came back and played Smile. Yeah.
That's a really good memory. Just watching you guys kind of huddled together, you know, just doing that live kind of it's like a party album atmosphere. It was just, I just loved it.
And we did some songs then that we haven't done a lot since then. Like, as a little boy, I loved the song Wendy. For some reason, it just really grabbed me. So I have these very early memories of that song. And then when we started to play it in the campfire set, it just brought me a lot of joy of remembering my childhood and that kind of thing.
Did anyone cough during?
Yeah, speaking of being accurate, was there a cough?
Yeah, but, well, if there was coughing, it was probably Brian coughing on mic very loudly. Yeah, he was famous for that, actually.
Um, well, Eddie, is there anything else that you think of that you'd like to ask Paul?
You know, if I had the time, I'd probably ask Paul 100 things. Um, but
And,
but
Eddie, it's a pleasure to talk to you because, um, you know, the Brian and his music and my whole life experience with this, with him and with this band, um, uh, means a lot to me. And I know the connection that I feel with my friends in the band and my fellow musicians. And when I talk to fans who really get it and who really enjoy the music, um, it gives me a different it gives me another perspective on the whole experience, and it makes me happy for what we've done, you know, because it clearly it means something to people. um, and you know, sometimes you do something and you think it's pretty good, but you're not sure, you know. Other times in this experience with Brian, there's an outpouring of support for the efforts and for the music, and that's so satisfying. So thank you. I want to say thanks.
well, thank you very much, because everything that I have ever seen you do on stage is just covered by the aura of love, really, for what you're doing, and encompassing the love that is in the music. And it's just something that you cannot get anywhere else, other than, you know, from that particular artist, those particular songs, and those hand-picked musicians slash magicians that have been so perfectly befitting to, you know, just passing on those blessings. And it's just mind blowing that that anybody can, I don't know, can express that, especially night after night. And, you know, so I thank you very much for not only joining us for this call, but, you know, thank you so much for the service that you have brought to the fans in everything that you have done.
You're welcome. It's been my great privilege, really.
And I do also want to mention, and Paul, help me if I'm forgetting somebody else. We've mentioned Nikki, but I also want to mention Jim Hines, who was such an integral part of Brian's touring band when he started out.
Yeah.
He was so good. He and Bob were the Tasty Brothers, if I'm recalling correctly.
Right.
And so I miss Jim. You know, over the years I miss Jim's presence. You know, nothing. Love Mike D'Amico, but not making any comparative analysis at all. Just saying I love them both, and Jim was a big contributor to those early tours, and he made quite an impact.
Yeah. And the, you know, the the bond, the telepathy between him and Bob, was always remarkable, and it was always a beautiful part of the experience. Was just feeling them playing together and being able to lay your parts down on top of that framework is, you know, couldn't have been easier. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, as I'll try to just reiterate what Eddie has said. Thank you on behalf of all the fans. You've changed. You've brought love to Brian's music. You've brought love to Brian's creations. New creations over the years that we had yet to experience until they were released. And you made everything sound wonderful and great. So, thank you for making his tours as special as they were as well.
Thanks to both of you. Well, take care, and we'll see you down the road. Hit me up on Facebook, Eddie, if you like, anytime.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Right, bye bye.
Okay.
What a great guy, man.
Yeah, just a wonderful human being. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this.
Yes, I did. I did.
Excellent. Uh, so I'm going to show you the word, just so you didn't say it.
Okay.
The
It's
word
not
is
album, is it?
no, it's it's not beach, is it? No, the word was pine cone.
Oh, oh, that is funny because I just moved a pine cone off our porch.
Oh,
That's
you're
weird.
gonna just
I seriously did. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is too funny. That you were that close, that close.
If I had gone out the other door instead of that one, I would have mentioned pine cone. But